There is a signature to strip Jon Jones
I
a
saw
petition.
that. Did you sign it?
It's
You
over
signed it, didn't you?
70,000.
You signed it, didn't you?
I did.
I'm gonna search the database.
I didn't search it.
I'm gonna find your email on there.
Dude, that's 70,000 signatures.
Tom Aspinall erupts as Jon Jones faces imminent title strip, sparking outrage over his legacy crumbling without a final fight.
Great, get over.
Sorry, it's a Jones thing, Tom.
The UFC heavyweight division might be on the brink of a major shakeup as growing fan unrest and persistent silence from Jon Jones have sparked a wave of support for the idea of stripping him of his title. What started as a frustrated whisper among MMA fans has turned into a loud movement, one that now has over 158,000 petition signatures demanding the UFC take action and officially make Tom Aspinall the undisputed champion. And it was Aspinall himself who poured gasoline on the fire by sharing the petition on his Instagram story, amplifying the growing sentiment that the division needs to move forward.
What about this? There are people who have started a petition to strip Jon Jones. We're now at 115,135 as of maybe an hour or two ago when we took this screen grab. Jon does also bring up a good point. If Jon told the UFC like 2 months ago, hey, I'm not interested, it's no longer on him.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So like, you remember one time I sat here and I said the UFC is not to blame? And I said that because they met the number. But now if he tells them, hey, I'm not interested, all right, you could say, well, you're to blame because maybe you told them, hey, if you meet this number, I'm fighting. And then you could say, all right, UFC is now back to blame because he told them 2 months ago, you know, I'm out. Why didn't you give Tom Aspinall a fight? There's this whole thing. Now, I heard Dana White say recently, like, look, we got to give these guys 3 fights a year. Remember we talked about this yesterday to a degree?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I guess they can come out and say, look, we could have given Tom an interim fight, but he told us he didn't want that. So that's considered turning it down. The whole thing is messy. There is no black and white sort of breakdown of it all. But the point is, I think the world has spoken. Look at that.
Aspinall has been interim heavyweight champion for a staggering 18 months, and his situation has become more frustrating with time. Despite his status, Jones opted to fight Stipe Miocic upon returning from injury in November 2024, leaving Aspinall on the sidelines and unsure of what comes next. Since then, there's been no official plan from the UFC, no clear commitment from Jones, and no concrete path toward a title unification fight. Jon Jones, speaking from Thailand in a recent podcast appearance, left his future intentionally vague. He hinted that while he may still be interested in martial arts, competition may no longer be his focus. For someone once obsessed with victory and known for his dominance inside the octagon, this shift in attitude was jarring for many fans. He acknowledged he might take part in exhibition fights, or possibly step back altogether, leaving fans and fighters in limbo.
Tom Aspinall said that he's getting frustrated waiting. He said it's very difficult mentally on him, but he said that this right here, this waiting, is the fight for him. On Jon Jones to set the date, stay motivated. It's a tricky bit for him to stay motivated, and he's trying his best, but at times it gets very difficult knowing that he wants to fight, but he's not getting the fight right now especially.
Meanwhile, Aspinall has made his position clear. He wants the fight, and he's beaten every top 5 contender except Cyril Gane, who currently sits at number 2 in the rankings. The Manchester-born fighter has done his part, taking on and defeating the best available while holding on to the interim belt. Yet he remains sidelined, unable to unify the title, and unsure whether the division will be allowed to move forward with or without Jones.
Jon, in my opinion, if you look at his body of work over the last 15 years, he's like as close as you can get to perfection as possible. He's like 37, 38 years old, but not only that, he's got a million miles on the clock. So he's got a lot of damage on the body. He's took a lot of shots to the head. And that's not me saying anything negative about it. That's the reality of it. And I'm sure Jon Jones is aware of that. And he's fighting one of the most concussive punchers in UFC history. And I just think I can exploit it. Like, I think to get out the way of me for 25 minutes at this point in his career without getting hit once, and that's all I need is just one, I think that's going to be very difficult for anybody.
Opinions about the Jones-Aspinall saga remain mixed. Daniel Cormier, a former 2-division UFC champion and longtime rival of Jones, offered a layered perspective. On one hand, he doubted Jones would retire without facing Aspinall, saying his ego wouldn't allow the perception that he ran from a challenge. Cormier believed Jones cared too much about public opinion and would ultimately step into the octagon to silence the doubters. But at the same time, he acknowledged what many others have begun to whisper: Aspinall might be the biggest threat Jones has ever faced.
Now he's looking down at a young man, and it's like, he's not scared. Make no mistake about it. But I think it's enough to like question it. And you know what I think a big worry might be for him? Because with Aspinall, he could potentially get knocked out. Like legitimately knocked out and put on his back and out cold. And I just don't know that he wants to have that visual of him in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's probably, you probably nailed it right on the head right there.
Cormier wasn't alone in his skepticism. He speculated that Jones's reluctance might come from a fear not of Aspinall himself, but of what could happen inside the cage. Jones has built a legacy unmatched in UFC history. Youngest champion at age 23, undefeated in his last 20 UFC bouts, and widely considered one of the greatest fighters ever. Cormier suggested that what Jones truly fears is the image of being knocked out, something he's avoided throughout his 17-year career. Unlike most fighters, Jones has never been finished or left unconscious inside the cage, and the thought of being someone else's highlight reel could be influencing his silence.
Do you think he's ducking, Tom?
No.
You think that fight happens?
100%. And it will happen this year. I believe I could go a little further and tell you this.
I think I could as well.
New York.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, we went there.
Yeah.
So going from Craig and Tom to my third favorite athlete to bring up to you, Dan.
Could we stay on that for just a second?
Please.
I never miss an opportunity to be my usual dick of a self towards Jon.
That's what I was aiming for, really.
Yeah, I just don't feel that's happening here. I don't believe. Let me just give you a timeline. Jon beat Stipe, Aspinall's in the ring. The only thing we know about interim champion, because I mean, we will change the rules as we go in this sport, we're well aware, but one thing that we know about interim champion is the interim champion is the #1 contender. The interim champion will compete with the undisputed champion. If for some reason that doesn't happen, they switch chairs. You are now the undisputed champion. I mean, that is why this works. That's why there's no conversation.
Those words echoed Jones's own recent reflections. In a podcast, he admitted he's deeply tied to the idea of winning, so much so that losing would leave him devastated and depressed. He said he couldn't imagine enjoying fighting if he weren't the champion. This confession led many to believe that Jones's hesitation to confirm a fight with Aspinall has less to do with logistics and more with protecting his legacy. Aspinall, young, powerful, and at the peak of his career, poses a genuine threat that could unravel nearly 2 decades of dominance.
Could we expect one more rodeo?
You know, I don't know what life holds as far as fighting, competing. I do feel like I'll be a lifelong martial artist, whether I'm coaching others or taking exhibition matches or things like that. There's a lot of great competition still in the UFC. I do view myself as more than a fighter. And being in my position, I feel like I have a lot more options than a lot of the other fighters as far as the ability to leave and return and things like that. And so right now, I'm just focusing on love, happiness, kindness.
Meanwhile, Dana White remains publicly optimistic, stating that the UFC is still committed to making the Jones vs. Aspinall fight happen in 2025, but with every month that passes without confirmation, belief in that promise seems to fade. Veteran fighter Gilbert Burns shares White's optimism, convinced that the fight is inevitable. Burns suggested that even if Jones were to lose, his reputation would remain intact. With so much already achieved and a sizable payday waiting, Burns argued the risk is worth the reward. He even speculated that Jones would be able to brush off a loss with excuses, citing age, a long layoff, or simply being past his prime. According to Burns, these narratives wouldn't tarnish Jones's legacy because fans would still remember him as the dominant force he was in his prime.
The biggest debate and the most controversial thing in the UFC right now, should Jon Jones be stripped of his heavyweight belt? Do you feel that this whole thing is just a ploy and they're actually negotiating behind the scenes?
I think so.
You do think so? Because I do too, but like, it's gotten so crazy that now you start to have some doubts. Like, is he kind of just throwing this and taunting the fans and the UFC? or is this just a negotiation tactic and they're actually having serious conversations behind the scenes?
I agree. I do believe it's negotiations going on. They get that food, that food is boiling. People, and eventually Jon Jones, yes, I'm fighting, and then people, everybody's gonna turn in.
Bro, if that happens, it's gonna be. I think it's gotta be December. You gotta end the year with this fight.
I think it's November. I think it's New York.
Either way,
I think it's New York. I just think.
I mean, it's getting.
Jon Jones has a lot to lose, right? But let's just think. Jon Jones lost. Let's just think that fight happened. Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
Tom Aspinall wins. And it's a close fight, and people think too. I don't think it's that easy.
Right.
But let's presume that Tom Aspinall win.
However, Chael Sonnen believes the window for this fight to be massive has already closed. Once hyped as the biggest heavyweight title fight in UFC history, public interest appears to be dwindling fast. Sonnen, an analyst and longtime UFC figure, explained that he can't even get traction on his YouTube channel when discussing the potential matchup. According to him, the buzz around Jones versus Aspinall has actually shrunk instead of grown over time, a rare and troubling trend in the fight game.
Talk about some storylines that are going on right now. We're about to enter the big summer month of June, International Fight Week, 2 pay-per-views for the UFC, but all anyone can seemingly talk about is the heavyweight division and the absolute mess that's going on. I'm almost tired of it. There's not much more that needs to be said. There's a petition out there with 75,000 plus people asking for Jon Jones to be stripped. Tom Aspinall's teasing some sort of announcement for Wednesday, but says it's not going to be a fight, and then made a joke that they're giving him an interim BMF title fight in the heavyweight division. Like, he's clearly just joking around, but I don't know. This is exhausting. Are you tired of this? Are you exhausted of this as well?
I am not. We saw Jon Jones sit on his ass for 3 years where he could have come out and fought. And there were 3 years when, he's taking creatine and doing pull-ups and trying to gain some weight. But the rest of us that had fought him and even observed, he said, hey, Jon, you don't need to gain weight. You can go right now. I think he weighed like 228 when this experiment started. He got all the way to 236, but he burned 3 years. 3 years at 3 fights a year, which is the average. I mean, we got robbed of 9 or 10 Jon Jones fights, which even if realistically was 5 or 6, 5 or 6 more experiences with the greatest mixed martial artists ever do. Like, we're going to really want that someday. We're going to want those tapes.
Sonnen suggested that fans may be losing interest because they're not confident the fight will happen. Unlike past super fights where delayed negotiations built excitement, the prolonged silence in this case has led to apathy. In his view, the lack of communication and engagement from Jones has anti-promoted the fight, and unless something dramatic changes, Sonnen doubts it can regain its former appeal.
I am annoyed and maybe even to the point of a little disappointed. One thing about this sport, as you well know, we fiercely adhere to the rules that we make up as we go. However, there is something known as precedence. When it was never explained to us what an interim championship was, we all did at least see, by the way they were treated, at a minimum, an interim championship makes you the #1 contender. The interim champion will not fight in the presence of the undisputed champion. If the undisputed champion is back, by laws of the dictionary, you cannot have an interim champion in the existence of an undisputed champion. You may not have an undisputed champion.
The frustration is not just on Sonnen's end. Many fans who once believed Jones versus Aspinall would be a historic clash are beginning to feel misled. Aspinall's patience is wearing thin, and the uncertainty has affected not just him, but the entire heavyweight division. If Jones continues to remain vague and the UFC does not intervene, the division could stall indefinitely. That's why the petition gained traction so quickly. It isn't just about fan loyalty to Aspinall or dislike for Jones. It's about keeping the division active and giving deserving fighters their shot. Aspinall has done everything right, and still, there's no clarity. Without movement from Jones, the idea of stripping him of the belt gains more and more legitimacy in the eyes of the MMA community.
He's not gonna damage his legacy that much.
But if he gets knocked out cold in the first round, what do you think?
Yeah, the people are gonna say, "Oh, he's still old. Jon Jones on his prime would kill these guys."
It just sucks to go out that way when he's been flawless,
Yeah,
that's the thing. But at the end of the day, if the check is big enough, does he really care?
The check is big enough. The check will be big enough. And then, I'm telling you guys right now, that fight's happening.
Really?
Yes, this
You're
fight's
that
happening.
sure?
I'm that sure.
So if you had to bet on it, you the place.
I'm not betting, but this fight, I really believe, I strongly believe that fight's happening. And especially all that petition, bro. That petition, who made that petition, bro? It's freaking Dana White making that petition, so everyone's talking about it.
While Gilbert Burns still believes the fight will happen, and Daniel Cormier expects Jones's ego will eventually force him into the cage, time is running out as fans' attention drifts and UFC begins considering other options like Cyril Gane or Sergey Pavlovich. The once epic showdown might slip away for good. Despite being close friends and sharing national pride, not even Paddy Pimblett could fully support Aspinall over Jones. While he praised Aspinall's rise in skill, Pimblett leaned toward the proven greatness of Jones, citing his ability to adapt mid-fight and evolve under pressure as key reasons he remains nearly unbeatable.
Do you think the Aspinall-Jones fight happens?
It's got to happen. I was sitting next to Tom the other week at the UFC in London and talking to him about it.
How do you think that plays out if they fight?
I'll be honest, Tom's a friend. I love Tom. He's one of the coolest dudes in the whole of MMA. Even though Jones is getting old, I just can't pick against Jon Jones. The one thing I do think Jon Jones has got the best in the world and the best ever is his fight IQ. He has a perfect game plan to beat that person. As much as I love Tom and I want Tom to win, I couldn't pick against Jon Jones. It's just something I couldn't do.
Elsewhere, Marcin Tybura offered a more strategic interpretation of the ongoing delay. Rather than viewing the lack of official confirmation as a lost opportunity, he saw it as a calculated buildup. For Tybura, the prolonged anticipation surrounding the fight isn't a flaw, it's a feature. He suggested that both camps may be using the waiting period as a tool, gradually stoking interest and negotiating power while building the fight's profile through suspense.
It's crazy to think what this guy is capable of and how quick that was, and where is the roof? That's the only question. Who can stop him right now? I cannot tell. I know, Jon Jones in his prime time maybe, but now he's might be a little bit older and the skills might be not there. So I don't know. It's crazy where he's going to.
Cain Velasquez, once the division's most feared champion, acknowledged Aspinall's impressive rise, but voiced some skepticism about his chances against a tactician like Jones. He argued that while Aspinall is powerful, his striking patterns can sometimes become predictable. In contrast, Jones thrives on finding patterns and dismantling them. Velasquez believed that Jones would approach Aspinall like a puzzle, using his intellect and planning to exploit openings and stay a step ahead throughout the contest.
What do you think of Tom?
Great, obviously, champion of the world. Amazing, he's beaten some tough guys to get there.
You think he beats Jon Jones?
No, I don't think he does.
Why not?
So me just watching him, I kind of see his pattern a little bit and his striking, the way he comes in and strikes. And I think Jon sees it too. Jon's studies, man. He does his homework, He's a master at this. He's gonna know what to do. So I don't think he beats Jon. No. The simple fact is the way Tom he doesn't have a pattern that's somewhat easier to find when he comes in and strikes. And I think you know what we're talking about. A lot of things come with that. It's disguising your pattern. It's throwing fakes here and there before. But when he comes to attacks, he comes in and attacks. It's 100% full go. He comes in, glides in, lunges in, and does his attack. Again, not that it's not effective. It is. He's done great things with it. The type of guy that Jon Jones is, I think he studies them and he beats them because of that.
From a tactical standpoint, Arman Tsarukyan analyzed the potential matchup through the lens of spacing and distance control. He pointed out that Jones's exceptional reach and ability to manage range could be the key to neutralizing Aspinall's explosiveness. Tsarukyan envisioned a scenario in which Jones avoided direct exchanges, picked his moments, and frustrated Aspinall by preventing him from unleashing his signature power, turning aggression into missed opportunities.
Who do you see as the #1 pound-for-pound guy in the UFC right now? Is it Makhachev? Is it somebody else?
Of course, it's a Jon Jones.
Jon Jones?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We got to get him fighting Tom Aspinall maybe this summer.
Good. Yeah, that's the fight everybody wants to see, even me. And because younger versus GOAT and real heavyweight. So I feel like it's gonna be hard to Jon Jones.
Rashad Evans approached the topic with a deeper appreciation for what Jones has already accomplished. He reflected on the mental toll such high-stakes fights can have, especially for a fighter with so much to lose. While he admired Aspinall's momentum and hoped the fight would eventually happen, he empathized with Jones's apparent reluctance. Evans believed it was fair for someone in Jones's position to consider whether risking everything for one more challenge was truly worth it.
All right, last thing. Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, who you got?
I got Jon Jones. I think Tom Aspinall is a man, but I feel like, you know, Jon Jones is just another level. He can do it in so many different ways with his striking, with his grappling, and I feel like, you know, being in a situation, coming in a fight where he's kind of being pushed into this point, I feel.
Tom's a big boy.
Yeah, but I feel like with John's a big boy too, and Jon knows how to fight like a big boy.
Right.
You know, one thing I feel like what Tom does really well is he moves so well, and I feel like that may give Jon a little bit of trouble, but I feel like Jon is smart enough to figure it out.
Georges St-Pierre weighed in with a sobering reminder about the inevitability of physical decline. Though he placed Jones among the all-time greats, GSP emphasized that no athlete can fight off aging forever. In his view, Aspinall's youth and athleticism present a legitimate threat, especially if Jones isn't operating at peak condition. Still, he believed that if the right motivations were in place, especially financial ones, Jones could still deliver a memorable performance to close out his career on a high note.
If I have to choose someone in his prime that I put in the Coliseum hand to hand, I think I would be Jon Jones. You know, it's hard to deny that. However, nobody beats time, and Tom Aspinall is on a hell of a run now. So it's to see how they get a match. You know, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. As a fan, I want to see this fight. I would like to see this fight, but I think Tom is very hungry, and it's up to Jon to see if he still wants to do this and if the UFC can compensate him good, because I think he deserves it. So it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Former champion Frank Mir centered his perspective on style and tactics. While acknowledging Aspinall's knockout power and striking credentials, he viewed Jones's grappling as the true wild card. Mir suggested that Jones could dictate the terms of the fight through positional control and technical superiority, avoiding a striking war altogether. To Mir, Jones has little to gain and much to risk, and given his already legendary resume, choosing not to fight Aspinall wouldn't necessarily diminish his career.
I think Tom might have the best chance of anybody to beat Jon right now. But that being said, I still think Jon wins the fight just because of his wrestling. I think he puts, you know, Tom on his back and then is able to nullify his jiu-jitsu from being top position with his elbows and control. What does Jon win? Take that fight. He goes out there and beats Tom. Is it really going to make or break his career? I don't think anybody cares.
Israel Adesanya echoed similar views about fight control, particularly when it came to wrestling. He pointed out that Aspinall's striking arsenal could quickly become irrelevant if Jones dictated the action on the ground. According to Adesanya, if Jones is able to secure early takedowns and maintain top control, he could sap Aspinall's energy, slow the fight's tempo, and ultimately wear him down over time. This ability to impose a grinding pace could neutralize Aspinall's fast-starting approach and make the fight unfold entirely on Jones's terms.
But Aspinall, so far, the way he dispatched off the Russian guy, oh my God, and he's fast, but he's the same height as me, if not inch taller, but thick. And I was like, you're a lot thicker than I would expect. And the speed, yeah, that's the thing that I'm like, okay, that's the danger. But again, grappling, he's a black belt, but Jon it's different. Yeah, but I don't know, man. They got to fight, but if they don't ever fight, we'll never know. That's because we had that with Jon and Silva. We had that with Silva and GSP. So being all these fights we will never see.
In the end, Jon Jones might return, fight Aspinall, and prove why he's still the best. But if he doesn't, and he chooses legacy protection over competition, the UFC may have no choice but to act. The pressure is mounting, and the choice now seems clear: fight or vacate. So what are your thoughts about this? Do let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos on the screen right now.